So welcome, Brad, back up to the UP. You made the drive up from Montague, and how was the travel?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I mean, we got about 4 to 6 yesterday, so it was a little rough in the lower, but
Okay.
everything
Gaylord
up
still
north.
buried?
I went around.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I went around. I didn't want to mess with it.
Yeah, I saw a Facebook report that Gaylord had over 150 inches of snow this year.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even imagine.
They're just
It's
getting hammered.
snow belt, I guess. So, yeah, today you're dropping off some mineral and picking up some seed to go back home with. And we're going to talk today about our liquid lime product we have with you, the 3-Cal. We're getting a lot of questions, a lot of talk on social media. People, haters are still saying, well, it's snake oil, and they don't quite understand how this works. And then we want to talk about one of your new products coming. Pretty excited about that. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about, now we're going to get to look like the cool kids in their Cool Kids
Absolutely.
podcast. So we get to have our product up on the table. So,
Perfect.
first thing is you notice, now this has been sitting here in our shop for, I'm going to say 3 or 4 months. Okay. And
Untouched.
untouched. Okay. Now, with the old lime that we used to deal with, this would be a brick.
Correct. And that's what we get a lot of questions as far as what's this separation?
Yeah.
What is that?
Mm-hmm.
That's a few different ingredients that we had put into in order to come up with this new product. So, like you said, it used to be a brick.
Right.
It would sit for maybe a month, and even then it'd start to solidify.
Yes.
And then it would turn into basically what would be at that point a big brick of ag lime.
And now you had to do a lot of work to get that back into a liquid state, but not so much of this.
Correct. And that's what we were super excited about with the new 3-Cal and full spectrum.
Right.
That what this is a few different ingredients to keep that in solution, number one. And then that way too, that's able to sit, as well as some surfactants to help, I guess, drive that into the soil.
Sure.
Try to get that depth out of it, because we had an issue before of guys thinking that just because you're spraying the top, it's only an inch or two deep. You're not really getting that full 6-inch profile. Well, with that added surfactant, we can make sure we get that whole profile as far as making that reaction and raising the pH in that.
Sure.
So that's what that is. If you guys see that, don't worry about it. Literally, you can shake that for 10 seconds. Everything goes back into solution, and then you don't have to worry about it.
This literally will disappear in a couple of seconds of shaking this. I mean, obviously, you're going to want to, when you start to put this, you put that in the 5-gallon to make that slurry.
Yep.
You're going to dump that in. You're going to mix that all up with a paint. I use the electric drill with the paint.
Yep, that's perfect.
Stir. Yep, but I shuck it twice, and you can see that it's gone already. And one of the things, this is 16 pounds?
14.
14 pounds. This is heavy, okay? This is not a light product. There's a lot of concentrate there. But if you want to watch how we did it here last year, we did a video. It's on our YouTube channel. I think it was about June or July we started spraying.
Yes.
And we actually walked through the process of taking a gallon of that, putting in our Fimco sprayer, what nozzle selection, how we prepped it, how we cleaned it, which is very important. You don't want to just, put the thing away when you're done. But we go through the whole process of that. But let's talk about this product a little bit. So it's in a concentrate form, and it's 16 pounds, and this is derived from calcium carbonate.
Correct. I want to touch on that because that video we did, a couple of them last year, those were really good with a lot of information. So if we miss something, you guys have questions, it'd be worth checking out that last one. We did cover a lot in that. But yeah, that's a 14-pound gallon from calcium carbonate compared to some other ones are from a chloride base, which is not what you're looking for. The carbonate is what makes the reaction in order to change the pH. So a chloride is not going to do that.
So yeah, this is derived from calcium carbonate, not calcium chloride. Now, let's not mistake that for, again, we're not picking on anybody. We're just trying to be factual. There are products out there that are claiming to be lime products that are actually calcium chloride. And that's not going to raise your pH.
Correct.
Okay.
And not only is that not going to raise your pH, but then you have the negative baggage of the chloride itself, which we don't want to build up in soils at all.
No, we don't want that. Calcium chloride, for folks that drive in the north, you're driving down the highway and you see those big dump trucks or trucks spraying a brown slurry on the highway. I just watched it last week. Part of that slurry is calcium chloride, okay? And that's the brown liquid. That's what's the calcium derived in those brown jugs. It's not just one. Now, there's a couple of companies out there that are trying to sell you a lime-based product that is derived from calcium chloride. If my thought process is that if you can spray this on the highway to keep ice from forming, probably not something you want on your food plot. Okay, just think about that. So
Agreed.
this is from calcium carbonate.
Yep, correct. So, like I said, the carbonate is what makes the reaction in order to raise your pH. So, with the 3-cal, you're getting the carbonate. We're making the reaction. We're raising pH. You're also getting some calcium for the soil. You're also getting calcium for the plants and the roots.
Okay.
So that's the 3-cal. That's the point of that. You're getting calcium 3 ways. And those other ingredients that help to kind of keep it in solution, drive it into the soil, that's helping all those as well.
Sure.
Taking all 3 of those forms of calcium and making them available for the soils.
Okay, now you actually were not here more than 5 minutes when we had a gentleman call about this product. It's kind of funny how that works. I said, well, buy it. Just happens that Brad just walked in the door here. And he was asking about the timing. So he had a real low pH. He had like, what was
5.2.
He had a 5.2 pH and he had 5 different food plots totaling, I think, just
2.5
under
acres.
Yeah, just under 3 acres. So we ended up selling him 3 jugs, and he's also doing egg lime. But you said to spray this first to get that process going, and then put the egg lime on as well. So this is going to be a spring applied.
Yep, because for guys that are wanting to do both, whether it's ag lime or pel lime, you can still combine them and use liquid at the same time, then that's great. Because the liquid lime, when we go to spray that this year, that will raise the pH for right now in the time being through this whole season. And then any ag lime or pel lime that you put down now, that's going to take time for that to react. Therefore, that reaction won't actually take place and raise your pH till the following season, or, 6 to 9 months on average.
Okay.
So we'll be able to spray the liquid, get that pH up right away so we can start growing, and then over time, the pel lime and ag lime will slowly react, raising that pH.
Sure.
So you can totally couple them, and there's a ton of guys that do that.
So this, if you end up doing this as a spring planting, a spring spraying, you will have that benefit from now until well after deer season.
Yeah, and that's what's so great. If we spray that at spring, which most guys is in May, end of May, early June, that will raise your pH and carry that through the whole growing season.
Okay, so a lot of the questions we get are the correlation between this, the 3-cal, pelletized lime, and egg lime. Okay, and in particular, okay, what is this, the 3-cal? How is this translate into egg lime pounds or pelletized lime pounds?
And figuring out those calculations.
Correct.
So the easiest way is to find out, like ag lime, let's just run with ag lime for right now. That's the simplest.
The powdered lime.
Yep.
Yep.
So wherever you're getting that from, the amount of calcium carbonate in that will differ from mine to mine. So wherever you're at in the country, it's always going to be different.
Okay.
But that's the easiest. In a ton of ag lime, it's anywhere from 6 to 18 pounds of calcium carbonate. That's what's making the reaction. So if you take a look at that, as far as wherever you're getting it from, they'll give you the analysis. That'll tell you how many pounds of calcium carbonate are in that, and you can take a look at that. Like I said, this is a 14-pound gallon, and that's what we will start our calculations for, as far as what I tell guys what we recommend. But we go a little deeper when we do that. So like when guys send us their soil samples, we can take a couple more pieces of information to be a lot more accurate compared to, let's just say, another soil sample place where they just say, hey, here's how many tons of ag lime you need. They don't really know because it's different all over the country.
Okay.
One guy might have an 18-pound calcium carbonate in his ton of ag lime, and then there might be another mine that is only 6. Those will differ drastically. So if you want to send us your soil sample, we can go through, get you an exact rate, because we're going to look at that. We're going to look at CEC numbers and really dive in to get you as accurate as possible.
Okay. But a lot of, when we make recommendations, this is almost gallons per acre.
Yep.
Not,
Yeah, it's still the easiest conversion is saying this is really close to being equivalent to 1 ton of ag lime.
Okay. Okay. That sounds good. So now, you also hit on a point again that we want to make in comparison to the brown liquids. Now, you talked about 18 pounds, 17 pounds of calcium carbonate. And again, this is a white product because it is derived from that.
Correct.
The brown liquid is not the same as egg lime. This is. very close.
You're exactly right.
Okay, so think about that when you're going to do your plots this year and you want to move that number. This will move the number for 9 months,
Um,
6 months.
we'll say 6 months.
Okay, so this will move the number 6 months, yes. And you this isn't something you're just pulling out of the air. You've done
No.
this for a long time in the egg sector.
Very long time.
Correct.
And why I wanted to say 6 months more so.
Yeah.
The particle size in this is super small.
Mm-hmm.
In ag lime, it's way bigger. Pellet lime, it's a little bit smaller than ag lime,
Mm-hmm.
but still, those particle sizes are way bigger.
Mm-hmm.
This works the way it does because of the particle size being so small. So we can spray that, and just within, just say a week, we're going to make reaction. We're going to start raising the pH that fast.
Okay.
Because it raises it that fast,
Right.
that's also the same downside as why it only lasts for one season,
Okay.
saying 6 months.
But the brown liquid, that won't do that. You're
No.
still getting a shot of calcium.
Yes, and that's what guys on the ag side use calcium chloride for, because it's the cheapest form of calcium.
Mm-hmm.
So if all they're trying to do is get some calcium out, they can do that by a pretty budget-friendly
Okay.
dollar amount.
But it's not moving the pH.
No, correct.
Okay, so you could dump 1,000 gallons on it. It's not, your pH is going to still be 5.2. But if you use this, it's going to move it for 6 months.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So that the thing we want to talk about a little bit, we'll hit on, and then I think we're going to even do another video this year, is if you go back in our YouTube history, we did do the video on setup, spraying, nozzle size. Can you kind of get into that a little bit on why we're using a bigger nozzle versus and actually that gentleman that we talked about, we did the analysis for him quick, and then he was talking about he had the Fimco sprayer, and I told him you're going to have to get the biggest flood nozzles possible. Can you kind of get into that? Does it got something to do with we don't want to use the same nozzle as like if we're spraying Roundup?
Correct.
This is something we want to use. We want to dump as much water, as much pressure. What's the reasoning for that?
Yeah, so let's just say that we're only spraying 3-cal.
Sure.
Because that's going to be a whole different conversation when we add the rest of the products in. But if you're just spraying 3-cal, the more water you use, the more you're going to be able to drive that product into the soil,
Mm-hmm.
and the better coverage you're going to get.
Okay.
So a lot of the times, if you guys are using like 01 nozzles or the yellow nozzles,
Mm-hmm.
and you're spraying Roundup, it just looks like a mist.
Yeah, and that's what you want.
A little bit of wind is going to blow that out. You're not completely saturating that soil.
Okay.
You're not getting that good coverage. So by using a bigger nozzle with more pressure, we can make sure we're driving that product into the soil. That added water is going to help drive that deeper, not just sitting on top.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of go into, during a drought, using the liquids, you're going to be a little more drought proof.
Sure.
But at the same time, we can germinate if we start bumping the gallons per acre up.
Okay.
But when we look at, if you're just doing 3-cal, you can get away with about 20 gallons of water per acre.
Yeah, that was another question. People are like, how many gallons of water per this? And I said, I think it depends on your equipment, how fast you're driving, what equipment do you have, how many booms, how many nozzles.
100%.
Yeah, there's no, if you like on my rig, the 4-wheeler with I've got 2 booms or 2 nozzles. So a guy with 4 nozzles, he's going to be completely different.
Correct.
He might have to bump his water rate up, and the speed might be different.
Yeah, and that's why calibration's so huge. Like you said, take into consideration how big your food plots are.
Mm-hmm.
If you only have half acre, there's no point of trying to calibrate to figure out 30 gallons of water per acre. Let's figure out what size sprayer you have, how big your food plots are, and then that way you can calibrate for exactly each person's situation. It works really nice that way. But what I like to think of is, if you're just spraying 3-cal, 20 gallons of water per acre is kind of the bare minimum.
Okay.
That's going to really do a good job. It's not going to plug on you.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to get you good coverage, saturate that into the soil, and you'll be fine. If you start doing, 3-cal with AP, the fertilizer, the starter, the calcium, all those products, we want to be at a minimum of 25 gallons per acre. That's just going to basically make sure you're not plugging, and again, making sure you have plenty of water to get that good coverage and saturate the soil.
Correct. And then the biggest thing is you got to clean these, even though this is not in a solid form. And again, it's amazing how a year ago when we were using that other stuff, this would be a block right
Oh,
now.
it'd be terrible.
And you'd have to, man, you have to soak it in water and just work at it with a paint stir. But this is wonderful. This can sit on the shelf almost
For
forever.
a long time.
Yeah.
It's even the same with the fertilizers. I don't know if you've seen that firsthand quite yet, but even the fertilizers being so carbon concentrated, we'll say,
Sure.
that even with those, I mean, you wanted to have your water up just to make sure that they weren't clogging. But now with what we did with full spectrum and everything, we have so much better success and barely any plug at all, and it just works so much cleaner.
Yeah, and that's a big thing because if life happens, you get the tank filled and you're ready to go, and you get a flat tire on the quad, or you get a phone call, you got to run somewhere, you run out of gas or something, and the fact that you can come back and maybe just run the agitator while you're gone, or you got to do whatever you got to do, you don't have to come back and worry about is this stuff, did I just waste a couple $100 worth of liquid? I don't worry about that anymore.
No, you don't have to.
Right.
It's not going to be a block. I mean,
I've seen that so many times. You get done, and that last couple inches in there, it's everything's starting to solid up, and
Correct.
yeah, we don't have those issues anymore.
No,
That's
we've
a
come a
really
long
cool
way.
thing. Yeah. So I really like that. So if you're thinking about getting, you need some lime on your food plots, check out northwoodswhitetails.com, our full spectrum products, and look at that liquid 3-cal product. All right, so the next thing we want to talk about, Brad, is your new product at Harper Growing Solutions. You've got a seed treatment. Now, this is not a seed coating, so to speak. There's been a lot of seed coatings we've tried in the past. I mean, I've been doing food plots since, I date myself, but I still think it was 2001. 2002 might have been our first food plot, but we've tried all those powdered seed coatings. The problem I have with those, you buy a pouch or a bucket and you throw a scoop in there, you get done and it's still half it's in the bottom of the okay. And we talked about the seed coating video a couple of weeks ago, where you buy the pretty blue seed and you're out there going to town and you got this dust trail and it's all over you. And I found that with a lot of these powdered seed coatings as well. Okay, so you've got a seed treatment.
Correct.
Can you talk about yours, why you think this is going to be so much better than anything out there as far as the physical aspects of it and then the science behind it?
Yeah, so we've been using this on the ag side for a while now, and this is kind of where everything that we're doing as far as Harper Growing Solutions always stems from.
So when you say the ag side, farmers have been using this actual product.
Yeah.
For a long time. This isn't some Johnny come lately, hey, look what we've got now. You've been using this in the field. And I know you talked about it.
Yep.
Okay.
And I guess to kind of stem off of that, taking products from the ag side and then slightly changing them to make it better for food plotters. Because a lot of times we're not trying to, get a half a bushel bump on our food plot or anything like that. Like, we're not going as deep into the weeds. So we don't need a lot of the other stuff that's in there for extra, what I'm going to call extra. So we can take that product, play with it a little bit, and make it better and more affordable for food plotters, still giving us exactly what we want it for without having the extra couple things in there or extra couple ingredients that are going to drive up the price, if that makes sense. But we've been using this on the ag side for a few years now. The results have been just astounding. So what we did last year was the first year we really played with it on food plot stuff. We did a bunch of trials at our place. We had a couple guys local to me, and we just put it through the ringer. To put it lightly, we didn't have rain for 3 weeks after we planted. We had it was a 1/10 of an inch or something, right around 2 weeks. And we ran a drill planting Sweet Feast, and we had the seed treatment in the 2 outside boxes. That way it'd be side by side, and then you'd have basically 6 rows of not treated, 2 rows of treated.
Sure.
And once we got that 1/10 of an inch, it was 4 or 5 more days, and we got a quarter. But in that 4 or 5 more days, that 2 rows where that got the seed treatment, those both germed. And then the whole rest of the season, those 2 rows were just outshining the others. I mean, just without question, you could look at it and see it right away. It was really interesting. So that was on the Sweet Feast. We played with it with corn. We played with it with beans. We even threw some on some clover. And going back to the coating, I would not use this if I'm frost seeding. This is only for putting it in the ground,
Now this is
getting it
this
in
is
the
your
dirt.
your new liquid
Seed treatment.
seed treatment. You don't want it frost seeded.
I would not, because frost seeded, that's sitting on top of the dirt. That's just going to wash off, and it's not going to really do what we want it to do. What what this is it's a liquid product. It comes in a little sprayer. You're going to pour your seed in a bucket, spray it on there, mix it up, spray it on, mix it up. And that 2-ounce bottle is going to cover at least an acre of seed.
Mm-hmm.
So we can just take a little bit, spray it on there, mix it up, and then go plant it. And what that is doing is that seed is going to actually soak it up as if it were rain or water.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to kind of soak it up, so it's not going to just get washed off right away, number one. But it's a biological product with some other things in there. So that bacteria and fungal populations are there as soon as that seed germinates.
Okay.
And then that is going to be able to feed off of that, and the biology is going to do its thing and start working.
Couple of questions, couple of thoughts.
Yeah.
So the first thing people are probably looking at, why are you two giggling? So I'm looking over Brad's shoulder, and there's an ice cream bucket, and this may or may not be before this YouTube video comes out. And I actually sent you the text. I said, check this out, before and after. So I got a handful of the Pretty Blue, and I've hit this pretty hard, and I'm going to keep hitting it hard because I think this is the absolute biggest waste of money there is. Okay. And actually, that's another question I have for you. I'm going to write this stuff down because I have a bad memory. So I did an experiment the other day. I took a handful of Pretty Blue seed and I put snow on top of it because a lot of
For some guys, that's coating, because I know there's some guys that wouldn't know what you're talking about.
the seed coating.
Yes.
So it's seed with a blue coating on
Yep.
it. Okay. Because my thought process is this: if these folks are out, and I did a podcast on it, and I'm not sure if this is going to be out before our podcast or after, I'm not sure. But anyway, I took snow and I put it on this coated seed to simulate the fact that you're out frost seeding and now we get a snow on top of this coated seed. Well, after a couple hours of the snow melting and it's sitting right there, half the seed is doesn't have a coating on it. It's all over the paper towel. Okay. So can you imagine, because these seeds, and again, I'll hit this on a podcast and a YouTube video, these coated seeds sitting out in rain and snow and rain and snow, they're not going to germinate. Just because you frost seed, it doesn't mean it's going to germinate.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to wait till the soil temperature warms up. So you spend all that money on that seed coating, and after rain and snow, guess where it is?
Completely washed
It's
off.
gone. And we got to take a break, folks, because UPS is here and I got to go to work. We'll be right back. Well, that was interesting. So you got to see us load the trucks.
Yeah.
So never been interrupted by UPS, but we had to pay some bills. So that was good to see a couple pallets of seed go out on a Friday. So we were talking about your new seed treatment and how a lot of these seed coatings, whether it's, the seed coating, the blue seed coating, or whatever color they're using, in the frost seeding, it's pretty obvious it's not going to be there. And that's what you had indicated, and that's why I started laughing. You don't want this liquid seed treatment put on a seed because of that exact reason. You're going to lose it more than likely. So
yeah, and that's why I say for frost seeding, do not use that. It's not gonna do what we want.
right.
So if you're planting anything else, it's going in the dirt, it's getting covered, that's perfect. We want that seed to kind of absorb that and then have all of that liquid be there as soon as that seed germinates in order to really utilize it. That's going to increase seed vigor. That's going to push more. I guess what we're looking for is tons per acre.
Correct.
We're not really sitting there counting bushels. We want tons, but doing those little things like that just to help, like you said, that's a great point. We really can't make a lot of food plots bigger. So we need to try to do a better job and be more efficient with what we have. So that's just one of the things that, like I said, it was just a no-brainer seeing the results we were getting on the ag side, tweaking that just a little bit in order to cater to the food plot guys a little more and make that work for us a little better.
Yeah, that's kind of what we talked about that off air a little bit on this when you were kind of introducing me to the seed treatment product, that most folks don't have the ability to make their acres bigger as far as food plots. This is what they have, whether they're limited with, financially or equipment wise or whatever. So what we're trying to do, whether it's seed selection, product selection, we're trying to increase the amount of volume in the food plot, and this can help those plants get off to a better start, and you might have a little bit more growth
Yep.
in the 6 to 8 week growing cycle you have before hunting season, rather than if you didn't use something like this. But so I talked about before how with these powdered seed coatings, they come in a little bag or a jug or bucket, and you just throw it in there, that they don't do a good job of sticking because it's all over your pants, it's all over your hands, and half of it, let's say you throw a 1 ounce scoop into a bag of seed and fluff it all around,
Mm-hmm.
it's still in the bottom. It doesn't do a very good job. What I like about this, it's going to stick to the seed. The seed's going to absorb it, and then there's a couple of points you wanted to make.
Yeah. So that was one big thing on the ag side. When guys were getting done, their planter boxes is full of dust, right? That's just the coating, the old coating.
Mm-hmm.
So switching to this new liquid where they're mixing it, spraying it on, mixing it in, and now their seed boxes are empty. They're clean. They don't have that half of what they just paid for still sitting in the seed box.
Correct.
So that's a huge point. Like you said, if you're broadcasting, it's not just getting spread throughout the whole food plot.
Mm-hmm.
What we want it attached to that seed. That way, as soon as that seed germinates, that stuff is right there, ready to go to work. That was one huge important thing that I think not only gives us the results that we were looking for and keeps that very consistent, but then also you're not wasting that money. That's right where we want to put it.
Well, with your new product, Liquid, we're putting the seed. I think you were saying we're going to put the seed in a container. We're going to spray that seed, mix it up, and it's on the seed. It's attached to the seed. It's being absorbed by the seed. That's how your product works. I'm still trying to figure out how this powdered stuff is going to stick to a seed. It doesn't really make sense because, again, I get done with these, and I've used them all. It's sitting in the bottom of the cedar every time. So I just spent all that money, and half of it blew away in the wind, and maybe a third of it's sitting in the cedar. So maybe I got a third on the seed, possibly.
Cross your fingers.
I hope so. Sure. So, okay, is there anything else you wanted to talk about on that new seed treatment?
No, we kind of covered everything. I just wanted to make sure that guys knew that the whole goal with that is it's a biological. There's some nutrients there, so it kind of, as soon as that seed germinates, it's able to pull some nutrients right away, and then you have that biology that gets to go to work and kind of continuously feed that in the early stages. So the results we've seen on the ag side, like I said, have just been incredible. So being able to take that, tweak it, bring it to the food plot side, I think we're going to have a lot of success with it.
I just checked my notes. Now I remember what I wanted to talk about. And we talked about this dry seed coating versus your liquid.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have a gentleman on soon. And you actually got to try one of these liquids we're looking at.
Yeah.
And that was one of the questions and discussions we had. Okay, this liquid that we're looking at wasn't it really a compost tea? It was a humic acid.
It was kind of a mixture.
A mixture of both.
Yeah, it's a really interesting product,
Yeah.
and we trialed it like crazy.
Yeah, because you were curious. This wasn't one of your creations.
No.
I think you're like, I'm going to take this to task, and you did a good job with it.
We had, just to kind of give everybody an idea, when we do trials, when we get done, if you looked at it from the top view, we got flags everywhere. It's a grid pattern. It looks like a checkerboard.
Yeah.
So we got all these different things with different crops and different application timings, rates. And I was really impressed. And that all kind of stems back to that same concept of being able to combine like what we're doing now with the carbon aspect from full spectrum and then adding some biology to it. And that's the best of both worlds. That's exactly what we're seeing on the ag side. And being able to start off with this seed treatment and then let that kind of help take over later with the AP and the starter.
Correct.
You have kind of a step one, we'll say, and then you have the step two. And it's really interesting stuff. We've seen a lot of good success.
But the point I wanted to make was this, is that you've got a liquid, biological in a liquid form.
Mm-hmm.
This gentleman, and I had long, long talks with him, and I said, hey, you guys want to talk to this guy? And we bought a pallet of this stuff and gave it to everybody. All our partners got to try it. And the conversation we had was about humic acid, and everybody, has their humic acid product, but it's powder.
Correct.
My question was this: how the hell are you getting a benefit from powder? Because you've had to cook it, bake it, you've had to dry it. Ours,
Mm-hmm.
ours comes with a label on it, and we haven't signed the paperwork yet. But it has a warning label: do not let it freeze, do not let it get hot. There's a certain temperature because
It's alive.
it's alive. Okay, and this is stuff, and I can't wait to have this guy on. I mean, this guy was unbelievable to talk to, and I'd like to do a group chat with him and have you come in.
That'd be great.
But he said all these powders, a lot of this stuff is dead. You're basically throwing powdered coal out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this we kind of went down a rabbit hole I really wasn't prepared to go to, but
No, that's actually a really good point. Because it's kind of the same thing with our liquids.
Mhm.
If you go from a liquid and dry that down to a powder, you lose X amount of nutrients, you lose X amount of amino acids, and all these things that you're able to save as a liquid. And this also, take this back 10 more steps, it's the same concept of liquid fertilizer versus granular fertilizer.
Sure.
I mean, it's all the same concept.
Yep.
We are running a seed treatment with liquid. You could run a seed coating with granular. And I mean, guess who's going to win there?
Sure.
No competition.
Sure. Yeah. So if you're, I didn't really plan on talking about that, but it just spurred a thought. And then that conversation with him, I'm like, well, yeah, that's the same conversation. Everyone's selling this powdered, dry, humic acid product. And I showed him, we actually went to people's websites. So this is what they're, and he actually laughed. He said, well, you've killed everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's dead because it's powder.
Yep.
And then when we got the pallet of stuff here, it stinks.
Yeah, it does.
Literally, it smells ridiculous. But so that's a whole nother conversation. So I mean, we've gone down a couple of places we weren't planning on going. But I'm really excited about this liquid biological seed treatment. That
I'm super excited. I do want to throw that out because it's alive. The bottling process, because the jar it's coming in is there's a few steps there, but it's basically going to be bottled and shipped same day. That way we don't have to worry about kind of suffocating them. It's going to be bottled, shipped same day. So this is also something we are not going to be shipping this in March, not in April.
No,
it's going to be, probably starting in May.
Okay.
We'll start shipping that, and I don't want to have to worry about doing that because otherwise you're not going to get the results. So
you
kind of in season.
We'll probably have to do an instructional video podcast because we get together like once a month.
Yep.
If you've got questions, maybe we can start that list here on YouTube in the comments below. If you've got questions, we can, if you're listening to the podcast, we've got northwoodswhitetails.com. It's in the lower left now. You can ask, you hit that icon and it comes right to our phone here. And just say, hey, for the next podcast with Brad or the next show with Brad, same thing on YouTube, can you ask this?
Yep.
And we'll start a list. If we can get like 8, 10, 15 questions.
That's perfect.
We'll do that. We'll do
Okay. That's we always try to do these on kind of our frequently asked questions just to make sure we're covering everything. But I think the more feedback we get, the better job we can do.
All right. So we're going to end it here. Thank you so much for watching on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening on the Field of Greens podcast. And again, if you've got questions, we're going to get that together pretty quick. So, all right.
Oh, I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for coming on, Brad. And we'll talk to you in a couple of months.
Yeah, you bet. Sounds good.